Skugtash. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sissy, Unci, Aunties. It's so great to be with you all today. Hi, my name is Jennifer. How's everybody? Ani Napchukik, Jennifer Varenchek, Aniat Tono Atam. I'm from the Tono Atam Nation, which is in southern Arizona, and I'm so happy to see everybody here today. We have a wonderful show for you all today, February, the month of love. So we're going to be talking about loving ourselves and honoring our spirits. And we have some great, wonderful topics that we're going to be talking about. Great questions that are really deep. And we have a wonderful guest, Kimberly Robertson. She'll be joining us. But before we do that, I'm going to bring on Justine. So Justine, there you are. Hey, how's it going?
Hi, it's going good. It's the month of love, but also the month of your birthday. So happy birthday, shout out. Just so y'all know, if you want to send Jennifer a happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hi, everyone. Yate, Shik A, Do, Shitne, Shit A, Justine Medina, Yeneshe, Snake Clan from Winnebago, Neshle, Nakai Bashatin, Nakai Dane, Dasha Che, Nakai Dashanelli. Hi, everyone. My name is Justine Medina. I just did my introduction in Navajo. I am practicing, y'all. So if y'all have some tips, please let me know if I need to improve that. My mom is from the Snake Clan from Winnebago. She's also Menominee. My dad is from Yucatan, Mexico. And my maternal grandmother, her clan is the Mexican clan. From Navajo people, and then my maternal grandfather, he's also from Yucatan, Mexico. Just a little bit about me. And before we go on, let's hand it over to April.
Kiyohomi Takiape, April Cordovi, Machiape, Malakota, and Taos Pueblo. My Thama is Joseph Conquilla Cordova. My Iner and my cause, Patricia Crow Cordova. I'm sixth generation from Chief Red Cloud. I'm the owner-operator of AC and Associates. I'm a mother, daughter, community member. I'm a co-host. I am so honored to be here. Hello, everybody. My name is April Cordova. I'm Taos Pueblo and Oglala Lakota. I am streaming in from Tongva territory, and I'm so excited to be here for the South Love February stream. I wasn't here. I was here last month, but I was behind the scenes. I'm here behind the scenes as well, but also in front of the camera. I do want to have everybody, if you want to put a happy birthday in the comments for Jen and everybody else that's celebrating. It's all month long, girlfriend. So we're going to celebrate you because you bring so much joy to so many people, including myself. So
thank you. I appreciate it so much. I have to say that last year at the birthday, when it was my birthday, I was a little sad because all my friends are so far away. But this year it was really great, and I'm just so grateful. So thank you, you guys. That really makes me feel good because I remember calling April and I was like, I have no friends, and she was like, you do have friends. You have a ton of friends, and I was like, that's right, I do. So I appreciate it. I meant I have no friends like physically here, but I do. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Justine. Thank you, April. So should we get on with the show?
Yes.
Okay, so I think next we're going to do, I didn't get to say where I'm streaming in from. My bad. Everybody, today is a brand new location. I am coming to you today from my office, the Hawaii Filmmakers Collective. So I'm coming from the illegally occupied Kingdom of Hawaii on the island of Oahu. And I'm actually downtown today. I'm in the city, so I'm in Honolulu. But yeah, that's where I'm streaming in. So I'll hand it back to April. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jen, for letting us know. I'm sure it's a beautiful day over there. It's Hawaii. It has to be the paradise, the islands of paradise. Here it's raining, which prayers to the areas of where the Eaton fires and those areas because of landslides. I'm thinking it's been raining all day, but I'm really grateful and thankful to be here today to have a conversation that I think is needed, much needed. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and we always begin in good ways, from introduction to prayer to land acknowledgement. So I'm going to go ahead and say a prayer. Please give me a moment. If you don't pray, just center yourself and have good intentions on what this might be about. Also, I pray in my own way, so you can pray in your own way, but this is a generalized prayer. So Creator, we come today with open hearts and open minds, thankful for the many blessings that you provide us on a minute, monthly, second basis, from the ability to walk, talk, be here today, to laugh, to learn, to listen, to understand, and to use our voices to make change, to have concerns, and to know that this is a safe space amongst us individuals, our relatives that are here. Everybody has different opinions. We understand that. But just as long as we can have a safe space to chat, to talk, continue, Creator, to watch over the lands, to continue to heal the lands, not only heal the lands, but heal the people of the lands. Creator, I ask that you watch over the individuals that are here, the individuals that are watching, and the individuals that might be watching in a replay. Continue to keep them healthy, wealthy, and safe, Creator. I'm thankful for my community. I'm thankful for my Los Angeles Indian community. I'm thankful for my family, for my friends, and for individuals that have uplifted me in the times where I thought I couldn't, that I couldn't have a good day, yet laughter and just being able to use my voice and to share what's going on in my life has really helped me to have self-love for myself. Creator, today is about us healing. And I ask that you continue to watch over the individuals that are watching this, that are listening, whatever they're going through, from grief, depression, financial burdens to mental health issues, homelessness, whatever it is that they're going through, Creator, know that they can still turn to you, Wamana, Tukashala. Thank you for all of your love, all of what you put in front of us. Nothing is too hard. It may seem hard, but we shall overcome. Creator, I ask that you watch over, continue to watch over us, keep us healthy, wealthy, and safe. And thank you. Ta'a pilamayaye gracias et yehe ajona slay ajona slay ajona slay ajona slay oho. Amen. The end. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Justine.
Awesome. Thank you for that beautiful prayer, April. Before we get on, just wanted to do a land acknowledgement. We always start with our introductions, opening prayer, and we also do a land acknowledgement. So I didn't say where I'm from. So I'm out here in the Bay Area, and the original caretakers of these lands were the Ohlone people. Every time I think about that, I always remind myself that, you know, these aren't my homelands. I'm Navajo, Ho-Chunk, and Menominee. So they're across the nation. And so I always think about the original people that did take care of this land. And I thank them for, you know, the space that I have. And I just want to honor that. So if you're listening in, just take a moment, do a land acknowledgement, and just honor the people who were here and who were original caretakers. And now we'll get to the show. So we're excited to introduce our special guest. Her name is Kimberly Robertson. She is a citizen of the Muscogee Creek Nation, an associate professor of American Indian Studies at California State University, Long Beach, and an artist. Her scholarship and creative practices center Native feminism, the sexual and gendered violence of settler colonialism, ceremony, storytelling, decolonization, and indigenous futurities. Please, I think I said that right. Her creative practices currently include screen printing, collage, beadwork, installation art, and zine making. She's an active member of the Los Angeles American Indian community and facilitates beading and art making workshops for Native communities and tribal nations, both locally and across the United States. Bam, bam. Now bring on Kimberly. Hey.
Yay! So good to see you, Kimberly. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Oh, there we go. Mado, thank you for having me.
Yay! So each one of us knows Kimberly in a different way, but we all have that base foundation of the Indigenous community in Los Angeles. And it's so great to see you. I know we saw each other in, I think it was November or maybe it was December at the pop-up. Yeah, but that was really, really great to see you and your girls too. They're so big now. That was really wonderful. So as you know what the topic is today, honoring our spirits and self-love. So I'm going to hit you with the first question that we have, which basically, before we get into it, you know, a lot of people are, what is self-love? So I have 3 different definitions that I'm going to read, and then I'll turn it back to you to get yours or your thoughts on this. But let's see. So self-love from the dictionary, Merriam-Webster, regard for one's own well-being and happiness, chiefly considered as a desirable rather than a narcissistic characteristic. Here is a quote from an author and a poet, Rupi Kaur, I believe is how you pronounce it, but I'm not sure. How you love yourself is how you teach others to love you. Mm-hmm. And that's like it's more of a psychological perspective. And that's from the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation. Oh, no, this is from the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation. Self-love is an appreciation of oneself that grows from actions that support our physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. It means having a high regard for your own well-being and happiness, taking care of your own needs, and not settling for less than you deserve. Mm-hmm. So with that, let's turn it to Kimberly and let's hear what is self-love? What is self-love for you?
Okay. Thank you, Jen. And just before I start, I want to say thank you to all 3 of you. I've looked up to Avril and Jen for decades now. And so it's an honor to be here. And Teeny, it's good to be here with you as well. I've always enjoyed your presence. So thank you. Okay. So this is like, such a huge question, right? And so when I was thinking and trying to prepare earlier, I was thinking it over, and I wanted to start, I think, with a definition of love as Bell Hooks outlines it. And Bell Hooks is if you're not familiar with her work, she's a Black feminist, scholar, activist, all the things, you know, very, very prominent in the development of feminist theories, but particularly for women of color. And she has a book titled All About Love. And in this book, she really tries to sort of break down some of the ways that we have been socialized to think about love, and primarily the really unhealthy ways we've been socialized. And she really attempts to sort of, to have us have a deeper reflection and conversation on that. And one of the things that Bell Hooks says about love is that love is not just a feeling, that it's an action. Love is a choice and an action that we take. And so that's been always like very, very, that really resonated with me. And it's something that I reflect on a lot in my own relationships with others. Bell Hooks says you don't just sort of like fall in love. And whether this is with a child, a romantic partner, a parent, etc. She says, we don't really just fall in love. We actually make a choice to be in love. And that choice is a choice we have to remake every single day, right? We wake up every day and we have to choose to love if that's what we want to do. And so when I think of love in that sense, then, right. And what I love about this is she thinks about love as a verb. So I feel more empowered when I think about love as a choice and an action I can make rather than something that I'm like a passive person and that love falls on me or something. So, and sorry, I'm a little bit nervous, so I'm trying not to talk fast. Also, I'm a teacher, so I talk a lot. So
you're doing awesome. You're doing great. I'm like literally taking notes on everything that you're saying.
I'm taking notes too. I was like, yes.
Awesome. So then to turn back to self-love, right? When I think about self-love, so I'm like, okay, it's a choice that I want to make daily. And it's also an action, and it doesn't have to be a physical action, right? But it's a sort of, it's a willful kind of action for me. And so I think, for me, I have to wake up every day, and there are days that it's easier to choose self-love than others. I think particularly living in the world that we live in right now, I think living under the kinds of oppressive structures and living under patriarchy and settler colonialism and, white supremacy, I think we are told from a very, very young age, really from birth, that some of us are not worthy of self-love. I think also what I learned about love is growing up frequently, I think because many of us come from communities that have experienced trauma under those structures of oppression. And so I think that I learned growing up that love had to hurt, right? Like all those songs, like love was painful. And so it takes a lot for me to kind of get out of some of that, that socialization and way of thinking, and to remind myself that love does not have to hurt. Love should not hurt. And B, that I am worthy of love, regardless of anything. Just I am worthy of love, period. Right. Stop there. Under, again, under like the structures we're in, I'm thinking a little bit about capitalism. I think we are also socialized to think that we are only worthy of love or respect or what have you if we're productive in some way, right? So I think a lot of us, we base our self-worth on our quote unquote productivity. And so it's like, did I do enough for someone else to love me? Or did I behave in a way for someone else to love me? And so for me, a lot of self-love this practice of self-love has really been about one, deprogramming myself that again, like I'm worthy of love, just period. Whether I get out of bed or not that day, whether I'm able to take, et cetera. And so, I think first and foremost, like that, that's something that is an ongoing practice that I remind myself all the time. I think another kind of cornerstone of self-love for me is learning who I am, right? Like I need to know in order to love myself, I need to fully understand who I am as a person, right? And on some level that might seem simplistic, but I think again, when, we live in a world right now where like there are so many messages coming at us 24 hours a day, right? Just 24 hours a day, we have all these messages. And sometimes, I think it's very easy to get to forget what our own values are, what our own interests are, what our own, what is it that makes our own spirit sing? It's easy for that to get lost. And so, for me also, I think self-love is really about getting to know myself, accepting myself fully, And, you know, having respect for myself as well. When I think about love, I think of it's about respect, and also though it's about responsibility. So being responsible to myself and to others, right? But when I'm thinking of self-love, it's about, am I, you know, making sure my needs are met, the most basic ones, sleep, food, exercise, right? You know, so it's about, am I really respecting and being responsible to myself, my own, you know. And I guess I'm going to stop talking in a second. I think the last thing I would say is I think about love too, like in relation to the medicine wheel, for example, or some of our indigenous teachings. So for myself, self-love also, in order for me to feel like I'm kind of in alignment and able to practice it, it means that I have to be aligned, like my body, spirit, mind, and heart, body, spirit, and mind. For me, if any one of those sort of 4 elements is lacking, right, then you're like the wheel that can't roll because, you know, you're off kilter. And so, you know, for me, frequently, when I'm feeling really down or I'm feeling unable to love myself, lots of times it has to do with the fact that I'm neglecting one of those 4 quadrants of myself. Maybe I'm neglecting all of them sometimes, right? But at least one usually. And yeah, so I think that's kind of, you know, that's what like first kind of comes to mind when I think of what self-love means to me.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. I know sometimes maybe individuals might not know about the medicine wheel, and me being in mental health or have been a mental health advocate, I've learned it for a long time. You know, there's a lot of things that I didn't know, from intergenerational trauma to multi-generational trauma to the medicine wheel. But once I started understanding that, don't get me wrong, I sometimes go into a depression. And I never knew that before COVID. I never knew that I was in a depression until COVID happened. And I was like, what the heck is going on? But then after that, you know, there's different types of depression, from grief to whatever it is. And, you know, we have a viewer here saying finding ourselves again. You know, that's important for self-love. I mean, you know, there might be a time when you didn't have love from whoever, you know, your family, your partner, whoever, but being able to find it for yourself is very much important. So
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, Sheen. Go ahead.
Okay. I just really resonate with a lot that you said. And I think I think when you were talking, what comes to my mind is just like the self-love journey that I've been on, and like how what stood out was like the word deprogramming. Like, I'm like, how did I learn? I think first, let me gather my thoughts. First, it, like what you had said, allowed me to feel okay that I had to learn to practice self-love because that wasn't taught. And I think that's so important, because now that I'm just like, you know, I have a toddler, like, how do I teach him self-love? Like, was this even taught to me? Or did I think I knew what self-love was and it just wasn't? So no, I appreciate that conversation. I think that's the first thing that kind of came to my mind. I was like, oh my goodness, did I even know what self-love was, what it was to begin with, to practice it now? Yeah. And since now that I'm around all you amazing women, I've been able to like really study and really take tips from everyone of like how they practice and like put that all together. But thank you so much. And I'll hand it over to Jen.
Yeah, everything. I mean, I was writing down all these different things. And I mean, the thing is about self-love, I think, is that we aren't, like, I know I wasn't taught about that. Nobody sat me down and explained it to me. It wasn't until I was probably like in my 30s or maybe even 40s that I learned about it. And I remember very specifically, there was this Oprah show, and she had on Natalie, I can't remember her name, but she was a singer. And she was talking about how like she's learned about self-love, and she was like, on my birthday, so she had, on her birthday, she had a cake that she bought for herself, and she put on the candles herself, and it said something like, to my best friend or something like that. And she was explaining about how like I'm my own best friend. And I, at that time in my life, I was like, this lady is crazy. She's buying her own cake. She's her own best friend. Like, that's weird. Who bought their own birthday cake this year? Myself. And also I was like, I realized like, so my birthday was on a Friday, it was Sunday, and I was like, I haven't had that experience of having a cake. We did a lot of amazing things, don't get me wrong, but none of them like included a cake. And I was like, I need that for myself. I just do. I'm sorry that not sorry at all. But so I went and I bought my own little cake, and I didn't buy it like a full cake because I can't even eat a cake, but I bought like my favorite kind, a slice of birthday cake, rainbow birthday cake. And I made Glenn, well, please, you know, sing me happy birthday. But it was like, it was important to me. And it's some people are like, okay, she's crazy. Why is she doing that? That's really selfish or whatever. But it was something that was important to me that I wanted to do for myself. And it wasn't very expensive. And, you know, that's just how I did it. And I realized like, oh, okay, maybe this year is like, this is how I show love for myself. And I know that it can be like people can react like how I reacted when I heard about that lady doing it. But now I'm like, you'll see later. You'll see, hopefully you'll see if you go on this journey. So thank you for letting me share.
I love, Jen, that like you mentioned best friends, and then Teeny, you mentioned your little one. And it, you know, I love that because I think a lot of what, as Native folks, a lot of like what we understand around self-love is in relation to others. It's always about community and collectivity. And so I think for myself, Jen, I love just the idea of like your best friend, right? I would never think my best friend was selfish because she wanted a slice of birthday cake, right? And I would immediately run out and get it if I could. And so I think if, you know, that's one of the things I tell myself about, I think one of the things that I get caught up with is the negative self-talk, right? It's that voice in the back of your head that's been there since birth. And it's hard to turn it off sometimes. And I had a friend one time tell me, basically sort of what you were saying, but asked me, would you talk like that to your best friend? You know, or what would you tell your best friend if they were in this situation, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, you know, when you can finally start to think of yourself as your own best friend, right, then it becomes easier to love yourself, because it's so, or for myself at least, it's just so like, it's just common sense, right? That I would treat my best friend with love, respect, you know, try to hear them, see them fully. So of course, why wouldn't I give myself that, you know? And then Teeny, I just was going to add too, like, I don't know for you, but for myself, I can definitely say it was not until I have two children. So just for everyone listening, I have two children, amazing children. My oldest is a junior in college, and I still can't even believe that. Like, it's wild to me. And then my youngest is a 12-year-old in 7th grade. But I'm a single mom. And so I think just what I was going to say, Teeny, about little ones is like, I think for me, a lot of my journey of self-love and starting to sort of heal from some of the pain and trauma I think that I grew up with, it really didn't start until I had my girls. And then once I had them, it was sort of like, you know, I didn't learn to prioritize myself and make those changes for my own self. But once I had the girls, it was just like, this cannot continue. Like, not another generation of not holding space for each other and really caring for each other in that way. And so I would say, I'm saying both of these things to say, I feel like for me, a lot of what self-love, again, it is a practice in relation to others as well.
Thank you for explaining that. I see some comments like celebrating you, like we have to celebrate you, celebrate yourself. And I also like that you said about the negative talk, because, you know, we all get it. We can't deny that. Jennifer and me and Jen, we talk often, maybe not every day, but when we do talk, you know, sometimes I'll be negatively talking, but Jen will be negatively talking. And I'll be, stop talking about my friend like that. Like, why would you talk to yourself about that? I'm just like reflecting, because we do like a lot of soundboarding. I don't necessarily have to give her an answer. She just wants to be able to share. And sometimes she doesn't get that from wherever she's at. You know, we don't always get to be heard, but I appreciate that we can sit in a room and we don't have to entertain each other, but we can also have these deep conversations about being able to not do that. And I know also people are just saying, thank you for sharing. I know like some people can be considered, consider themselves or be seen as badasses too, you know, and like, why would I, you know, do self-love, whatever. It's not like a crazy thing, but also you also need to step back from being that badass and also take care of yourself. And like, who is the best person that has taken care of you? Your sister, your auntie, your mom. And whether they're here or not, be a reflection of them, because they taught you a lot of that self-love that we might not necessarily want to hold on to, because you're just surrounded by so much stuff, whether it be whatever it is, you know. So thank you for sharing that. I don't know, girls, if you want to say anything. Okay.
We can go to the next question.
So the next question, the next question is, now we're going into it, what's some or self-care practices that have been made a profound impact on your well-being?
Okay, this is another big one, but a good one, right? Okay, I mean, so I think sometimes so self-care is so important, right? And that's why we're here as part of what we're talking about tonight. Obviously, or maybe not obviously, but I don't think self-love is possible if we don't have self-care as well. But I do also think that over maybe the last decade or so, self-care has been being sold to us, like packaged and sold, right? Like, go get your nails done, that's self-care, or go take a bubble bath, that's self-care, or, you know, and I'm not saying those things aren't self-care. They absolutely are, right, at different times and in different ways. But I think also I try to remind myself that, you know, self-care means meeting my own like individual unique needs, right? Mm-hmm. Like not necessarily just a bubble bath because we were told that taking a bath is an act of self-care, but really like, what are my needs? What do I need to regulate, to be calm, to be happy, to be able to, you know, be my best self. And a lot of, you know, I mean, you all know, so I'm a beadwork artist. And for me, I think beadwork was really, really instrumental to me start my healing process and to the process of starting that journey of accepting myself, getting to know myself, right? And really just practicing, you know, that action of finding myself worthy of love. A lot of it happened through my beadwork practice. And, you know, so Teeny mentioned in the intro, I'm a professor at Cal State Long Beach, and I teach American Indian Studies and I teach gender studies. And especially, all of the courses that I teach have some degree of talking about like really painful topics and topics, you know, that bring up a lot of emotions. And so when I teach, you know, when I first started teaching American Indian Studies, I've been teaching for about 13 years now. And when I first started, you know, every semester would look similar, right? I would start the semester with a room full of new students, maybe 90 students or so a semester. And we would start at the very beginning. It was Intro to American Indian Studies. So we'd start at the very beginning of like the early colonial encounter for Native peoples, which was pretty ugly, right? And then it pretty much just goes downhill from there for the rest of the semester. I mean, don't get me wrong, right? Like, absolutely, I carved time out at the end of the semester to talk about what are the beautiful things Native folks are doing. How does our resurgence look like? How, all of those things. But first, I have to walk students through several weeks of just American Indian history, because we're not taught that in a lot of our earlier educational settings, right? A lot of us don't learn really much of anything about Native peoples in K through 12. And so I would take that journey with my students, and it's a 16-week semester. Toward the end of the semester there, we'd get a few weeks where we're talking about much more positive things. And we're really looking again at like the beauty of Native communities and peoples. But then the semester ends, I get maybe a week off, and then here we go. I got to start back up again, back at the early colonial moment, and take a whole new group of students through. Mm-hmm. And I just found that, although I love my work, obviously, or I mean, not obviously, I guess we don't all have that privilege. So, I love teaching. I love being with the students. But it was so spiritually taxing, because it's an intellectual thing when I'm in the classroom, and I have to it's about book learning in some ways, but also, when you're talking about the violences of colonialism and the violences of patriarchy, it's impossible to fully separate yourself from that and to just approach it like I'm just reading out of a book. And so it was, I get at the end of every semester, I just felt exhausted, just absolutely exhausted, spiritually, physically, mentally. And at some point, I started to do beadwork in the evenings as a way to kind of recalibrate a little bit, because I feel the calmest. I feel like I am in my element when I'm creative, and particularly when I'm doing beadwork. I find beadwork it's so soothing for me. It's so meditative. And so I started beading in the evenings after, I'd get home from a full day. I was a single mom, so take care of the kids, baths and dinner and homework and all the things. And finally, when everyone's in bed, I would sit down at the table and I would bead. And in the beginning, it was almost kind of out of like a desperation, like I need to find something for myself or I'm going to burn out immediately. And I was able, it really turned into something that I started to approach just with absolute joy. Like it brings me joy and it helps me recalibrate, just reset myself. And so when that started to be the case for me, then I just increased my beadwork practice. And once I found how much joy that brought me and that is something that really speaks to my spirit, then I started to teach bead workshops in community. And then it was like I married my two loves, like teaching and beadwork, and I brought them together. And I think, that became a practice of self-care for myself, helped me heal, helped me, helped me really like come to my students fully. But then teaching it to others also really became a self-care practice, right? That I was able to share out with my community. And so, yeah, that's beadwork has been really, really significant in my life in that way. It's also been a way that I'm, when we talk about love, so for me, then it's definitely an act of self-love, because it's all about, I need to take care of Kim right now. And let me tell you, I feel like my kids probably know if I haven't done any beadwork in a couple weeks. They're usually, like, maybe you should go bead right now, But it also became a way to express my love to others. And so, there have been lots of occasions. One of the stories that I tell, Avril knows, I make some memorial medallions. And I made one for Avril at one time. But the first memorial medallion I made was when we lost a young woman in the LA Indian community, maybe 5 or 6 years ago now. And she was one of our Native youth, and she was very active in community. And I was very close to her mother, and she was the same age as my oldest daughter. And when we lost Aaliyah, I didn't, as another mom, and as a survivor of violence, a survivor of sexual and gendered violence, it broke my heart completely. And I couldn't find the words to console my friend or to really, I just couldn't find words. And there was a way that I was able to pour all of the emotion, the love, the care, the comfort, but also the pain, the sadness that I had. I was able to pour that all into this memorial medallion that I made for Yvette. And when I gifted it to her, there was a way that those beads could speak for me. And obviously at the end of beading it, I wasn't all of a sudden happy, right? It didn't take that pain away, but it helped me to slowly start to work through that pain. And it helped me, I believe, I know that when Yvette received that medallion, she loved it dearly and she wears it still to this day. And it gives me so much joy to know how much comfort it brought to her as well. And so, yeah, I think, in many ways, it even brought us closer together than maybe like had I delivered food or something like that. There was a way that the beadwork truly came from my heart. And so I like to think of beading as also a practice of, a practice of loving myself, but a practice of giving love to others. It's one of the ways that I can really, express my care to people in my family, community, all of those things.
There's a lot of great work, a lot of great different work that you've done. And I have been and my family has been a recipient of that medallion, a beaded medallion. I know that there's a lot of other people that you've done that for, but how did that idea come about? You've done so many amazing things, and we need longer than an hour to talk to you about it. From, the time that you did Pasadena, shut that group down, or didn't shut them down, but taught them, to the gel bed bit. But, there's so many great things. How did that thinking of putting that picture, I don't know if it was a picture, but putting that picture onto, how did that come about? Like, what did that look like?
I think, well, April, my dad was disappeared when I was 15 years old, and he still, and he was disappeared, and he is until this day. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts, how I want to say this. I struggled a lot with memories of my dad. My dad was unfortunately, a very difficult person. He was a very violent person, and he was in and out of jail regularly and had substance abuse issues. And a lot of the things, that unfortunately can be common in Native communities because of the intergenerational traumas and all of those things. And so, it was always just very, very difficult for me to really accept my dad, I guess is what I'm saying. Because I was both a young girl who really yearned for him. He was not very present in my life. And then when he went missing, that kind of made the yearning even greater. Yet on the other hand, I was very scared of my father. Growing up, terrified of my father, very angry at my father. So I just had all these mix of emotions. And I just always felt very not at peace with the memory of my dad or my relationship with my dad or just any of it. And so before I actually beaded the medallion of Aaliyah that I beaded, I actually beaded one of my father first. And for me, that was, I don't have many pictures of him. I don't really have anything in my father's. I have a handful of pictures. I have one ring. I just very few things. And so I decided that I would bead a photograph of him because that was, I don't have that many things. And I thought, okay, well, this would be a way to sort of honor his photo. And I went through that process. And for me, that was a process of forgiveness. I had a lot to forgive him for, a lot. I needed to forgive him to be able to love him and to be able to love myself, right? Again, I think because I don't know if I'm going, sorry, I'm a little bit, I get all off topic, but I think one of the reasons I needed to love my dad and forgive my dad is because, when you're the child of someone, if you come from abuse or you come from those sorts of households, I think for myself, it always felt like, well, if my dad is quote unquote a bad person, then I'm half a bad person, right? Like I am of my dad as much as I am of my mom. And so I think I had to be able to work through some of that and forgive him so that I could not forgive myself, but so that I could fully embrace all of myself, if that makes sense. And so that was the first memorial medallion I beaded, actually, was for him. It was, for me, it was just a really powerful process. I really was able to let go of so much. I was able to kind of, think of him in the context of his life and all of the circumstances that formed him and made him who he was. And I think just sort of like I said earlier, that brought me quite a bit of comfort. And so then when Aaliyah passed, that, I don't know, it just, the first thing kind of that popped into my mind was to create another memorial medallion and to really try again to use that as sort of like a vessel through which I could just work out a lot of complicated feelings. And yeah, does that make some sense?
It does. And, thank you so much for sharing. It's a lot of things that are being unpacked here. And I appreciate you being honest and being able to share. And I would have never known that that was the reason that all came about. But what a way to self-heal for yourself, to be able to put your feelings into whatever it is that you were creating. And you being a creative person, I'm always blown away by what you make and what you do in community. So thank you so much for sharing. That does lift a lot of, opens my eyes to just beads, I'm thinking about like how people can start healing for themselves, taking a piece of your story and putting it into something, or exercise, or walking, or, just all these many self-care practices that, a bubble bath isn't necessarily going to do, but being able to necessarily for reals, like have self-care, but thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. No, yeah. Just want to say thank you so much for sharing. And definitely, I have also like a very challenging relationship with my father, and it's been really hard to like navigate it, and just, we don't talk anymore. And those are some boundaries I had to set up for my self-care. And as you were talking about that, I was like, it didn't really resonate to me right now, or like, oh, that is myself showing myself self-love and self-care, even through those challenging times. And I think that's just one thing I wanted to like, just to point out, is just like, yeah, sometimes we have to do, in my case, set up boundaries to show myself self-love and self-care. And even though it's with people that we do love, it's sometimes, I don't want to say the word confusing, because it's not confusing, but it can be confusing, So I think all that just to say is just like self-care, just always try to put yourself first and like do what's right for you sometimes. And sometimes I think for me, maybe I'm just projecting right now, for me, like if I get the signs of like, oh no, I don't need this, sometimes I ignore them. I'm like, no, it's gonna work out, it's gonna work out, no, it's gonna work out. But little signs start to happen, and just like, no, I should really do some self-care and some self-love here. So yeah, anyways, I don't know what I was trying to say with that. So whoever needed to hear it heard it. I needed to hear it and talk about that. But yeah, I definitely feel like some acts like that of just like putting up boundaries is something like self-care.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know we're almost close to time, and we had so many other great questions. We have to invite you back again because this was an awesome conversation. But our closing question is, if you could give one message to someone struggling to love themselves, what would it be?
I think maybe I would go back a little bit to sort of where I started in the beginning. I think I think probably one of the first building steps again is around like our own self-talk, and it's about treating ourselves as we would treat others. I think if, I guess like I was saying earlier about, frequently when I'm really hard on myself, which is fairly often, I have to be very mindful and present to, if I really am going to practice self-love. Like I can't just be tired, having an off day. My default is to go into the place of like being hard on myself, beating myself up, why aren't you doing this? Why can't you do that? Oh, da, 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 da. And so I think, that biggest one for me, again, is that self-talk. It's sort of, I ask myself, like, would I talk to my girls like this? Would I tell my daughters, like, you're worthless because, your mental health is really low today, and maybe you can't get out of bed, or the various things that can happen? Absolutely not. Right. I would approach them with care and tenderness, and respect and consideration. And so I think for me, that was a starting place. I think that's probably the recommendation I would give, would be to turn that self-talk around and to really, begin to accept yourself fully. And I don't want to sound like super cliche about it or therapy talk, but in a lot of ways, it's sort of about loving that child again and reparenting that child, especially, Tina, you were saying earlier, or it might've been Jen, one of us was saying, right, that a lot of us we were not taught to love ourselves fully. And also I think it wasn't really modeled for me. I didn't see the adults in my life loving themselves. And so I think turning, again, so if sometimes it's like I'm reparenting really that child that didn't learn these things at a young age, and remembering like, okay, sometimes as I parent my girls, I find myself like parenting myself alongside them, if that makes sense. And I know we're not all parents, so, but maybe you can think about that person. Who is that person for you? Who's that person that you turn to, that you have so much care for? And then to ask yourself, well, what would I do if they were in this situation, or how would I behave, or what have you? So I don't know. I don't know if that's I want to say so many things. I'm like, what is, yeah, but I think that's a good start.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I remember one time it was like after a job interview, and I was so hard on myself, and my friend was right there next to me, and she just looked at me like very like serious and like kind of like just like and she's just like, I wish you could see me through your eyes, like just looked at me, and I was like, oh, like because you're so amazing. I was like, oh, like, and after she said that, I just like, oh, looking through people's different eyes, how you see yourself too. No, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know, April, if you have any closing thoughts before we end.
I don't have any. I mean, there's so many more things that I wanted to talk about, from like the climate of the politics, the things that people are doing to make change. Jen does this thing on TikTok where she's resisting something, and she did like complain to Google that the Gulf of whatever is not the right name. And I did it last night. Like, I'm not going to be able to do it unless I know about it. So I love that she said that. But I mean, we definitely need to have you back, because there's so many more things that that we all wanted to talk about. I'm going to share in the comments, the jailbreak video that you did. So people can watch it. And just the other question that I have for you is, where can people, get in contact with you if want to talk to you, or how can they register for your class, or, just share with our watchers something that they can walk away with in response to connecting with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, April. I don't know exactly how to put comments in, so maybe you could in the comment.
Yeah.
But the easiest way is through my Instagram. My handle's a little extra, but it's me, and self-love, self-acceptance. It's KDR. Those are my initials. Kimberly, Dawn, Robertson. KDR slays the patriarchy. It seemed like such a good idea when I chose it. And I keep reminding myself it was a good idea. It is a good idea. It's all right. to have KDR Slays the Patriarchy as my handle. And that's the easiest way. I also am one of the co-founders. I was the previous co-creative director for Metzley Projects. And Metzley Projects is an Indigenous-based arts org here in LA. We're physically housed over in East Los Angeles, but we do programming all throughout LA County. And so I teach a lot of workshops out of that space. I do a lot of community engagement there. And so, you know, folks are welcome to check out Metzley. And, you know, we've always got workshops and things going on. We would love to have more folks there. Yeah, I think that's good. Those are the two places.
And what type of, how can somebody get into beading? Just real quick before we head out.
Well, I mean, someone already said TikTok. So I think that's, you know, it's one of the places now. I am astounded at what we can now find on TikTok. You know, you used to, I mean, before you had to like sit with an auntie at a table, or, you know, you had to listen to the stories, to be patient, to, you know, learn at the pace that, and I think still that is my preferred way of doing beadwork is in person around a table with my folks, you know. But I think if you're just looking to get started and you need to find a place, I think you could plug into a community sort of like Metzley Projects or somewhere. You know, we have so many service orgs in LA County and they're all doing amazing work. I saw, you know, at the beginning of the live stream, I saw that you posted some of the community gatherings and events that are happening. So one would be, you know, you can plug into a native org, or like I was saying, you know, you could do a dive on TikTok, you know, see what's up, see what's out there. Because I think another thing that for me that was a positive that came out of COVID was a lot of the community building that I started to do virtually that I would have never done previously. Technology is very overwhelming for me, but you know, during COVID, like that's how we connected with so many folks. And my beading community just grew exponentially during that time. So I would say, you know, check people out on there. I think more often than not, folks are very generous about their teachings and are really eager to have, you know, other folks that want to get involved and invested in any particular craft. So that would be my suggestion.
Thank you. I know that, with regards to beading, I appreciate you saying that, but in general, I would say find your community, find a community. There's a lot of resources that are out there. Now, I mean, in LA, there's a great, you know, there's always resources, but there should be Indian centers or IHSs all over the place, Indian health services all over the place. So definitely find a community, whether it be a church community, a AA, you know, NA, whatever it is. And I think also just stepping out of the box. Yeah. So Teen, I don't know if you have anything else to say, but I know that we've coming to an end, or we're at the end, and it went by so fast. There's so much, you know, that I always want to talk about, but I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. No, I don't have any closing. I have a lot of closing thoughts, but you know, we can close it out. Yeah. As April likes to say for the end.
The end.
There you go. You do. What is it?
Ta'a pilamaya gracias a tia het. Thank you.
There you go.
So join us again. Wado, yeah. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you in March. Look out for our flyers. It's usually on a Thursday at 5:30. Thanks, Kim, for being here. And we'll see you in community. Everybody else, thank you all for being here. It's been a great show, and we'll see you next month.
Yeah.
Thanks all. We'll see you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.